Hello and welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast. And in this episode, with our Wednesday night discussion group, we look at the age-old question of happiness, and we look at it from today's lens. We're currently in lockdown, and yet we're also in the Jewish month of Adar, which is known as the happy month. How do we marry these two? How do we access happiness during these days? If you prefer to dive straight into the discussion, you can feel free to skip the first 6 minutes where we talk about how lockdown has had an effect on our happiness.
Do you think, does anyone feel like COVID, lockdown, etc. has affected your happiness? Nice, easy question. And if you don't want to talk about yourself, you can say what you feel like it may have affected for other people.
I think it's affected. I think you found a new happiness because you've had to deal with it. So obviously it's not normal. Like I was always happy having my friends around for Friday night dinner and Shabbos lunch and just being together. And that's what made me happy. And obviously we can't do that now. So you have to find new ways to make yourself happy. So it's just a different happy, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's good. We have Nick who says we feel a bit isolated. I think there's a lot of us that can relate to that, especially people that are working from home or not working, right? And if you're not getting out, then it can definitely be isolating. It did for the first several months, but someone is saying that they've learned to live very similar to what Rachel is saying. Anyone else?
I say what? Sorry.
Go on.
Okay, sorry. Similar to what everyone else is saying, really. Like, I almost feel that I'm going to find it difficult to adapt to normal life, whatever normal life is. And this kind of almost seems normal when it isn't. And not that I don't have any expectations, but I don't really expect a lot of things, not that I did before. And it just seems like it's never ending.
Yep. A lot of us can relate to the never ending. But
yeah.
Are you saying that there are some things that we may actually enjoy or there could be positives for some people?
Yeah, not taking things for granted, like meeting up with friends and family. That used to be a given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I think a couple people said at the beginning of discovering the new local plays. Yep, it makes you appreciate what you have or had more. Yep.
For me personally, I've had moments where I've had both negative and positive effects on my happiness. So like when I've had some like really hard moments this year, like I really could have done with just hanging out with my friends or going to town and going for a drink at a nice bar, and like those little things that I would have done to sort of cheer myself up. Or all my siblings, I have like no family here in Manchester, so like I've not been able to see my family since July. There's been times where like I really could have done with spending time with my family, but then I think about like even like this, being able to attend this, like before Zoom, I've attended so many things through Zoom that I would not have had the opportunity to attend otherwise. So it's like things like that have actually made me really, really happy that I've actually had so many things come into my life that I wouldn't have had the luxury of having before coronavirus. So it's definitely had like positive and negative elements to it for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely hear that. Beth, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just think that it's kind of like the monotony of it. Like usually you have things to plan and look forward to, but that's all just disappeared. So, you can't like, not even, like booking something to do on Saturday, like after Shabbos or like on a Sunday. There's nothing to really look forward to, which is, I think, the hardest thing out of all of this. It's just kind of the monotony of it all. And, like when work was Like for people who love their work, that's great. But for other people, like the social element of work is great. But when you take that away and it's just work, and
Right.
like for kids, like when you take away the social element of school, it's just the work element, and it's just, you know, taken away. But, you know, we have survived it. We have got through it, and, you know, people have found the happiness in it. But it has definitely had an effect on happiness, I think.
Okay. I definitely hear that. Danielle, did you want to say something?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I think personally for me, like we've had a lot going on in my family, like losing my dad, losing my grandma. And I think in the non-COVID times, I would probably have seen my friends more during this period and like doing more family things. I've not seen my family properly for about 8 months, like actually in their houses. And like I would have done that pre-COVID, we would have all got together. And for me, it's more, I can see an end now, like with the vaccine, there's definitely the end, but it's more kind of the life continuing, which won't be the same in our family, for example, and just with everyone else, like the life won't be like it was pre-COVID. Definitely not. People will be different. There'll be no hugging your friends like for a while or anything like that. So it's going to be weird just getting back to the new norm in a way.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we don't really know yet what it's going to be like, right? We don't really know, you know, things, what's going to stick around, what's not going to stick around, how long it's going to take. Yep, you're definitely right. Which I think leads us into, it's very interesting to hear what a lot of you are saying, because a lot of you are saying COVID has changed our lives dramatically, very quickly, right? And a lot of you are saying that, yes, it's easy to say, you know, the monotony, the isolation, the you know, and people who have lost people through COVID, like these are big things that have happened. And it's definitely had an effect on our happiness. And we may or may not have felt you know, found kind of a new sort of happiness or a new appreciation. I think it would be fair, though, to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that for all of us, there have definitely been moments where we felt like, and not that we, you know, it definitely have moments where either for longer periods or shorter periods, that it's affected our happiness. We felt like this is hard. This is hard. That's what put it as it is. This is hard, and whatever in whatever that hard may be for different people. So I want to throw something out that is going to make this even harder. So we are currently in the month, for anyone that saw and this question was really brought to me by Nikki, which got me thinking. I answered her a little bit, and then it got me thinking a little bit more. And I looked into it a little bit more, and I thought it would be a useful discussion for all of us to look at together. We're in the month of Adar, which the Hebrew month of Adar is the month when Purim happens. It started, I think, on Shabbat. I don't remember. You'll excuse me. And what we're told about the month of Adar is that when Adar comes, we should increase our happiness, which is actually a mitzvah. There's a commandment to increase my happiness. Now I'm going to say the question as I may be feeling, right? Hold on a second. I'm just trying to get through, right? I'm trying to get from morning to bedtime and trying to grab a little bit of like relaxation, sleep, whatever else, and do it all over again the next day, and again and again and again. And you want me to be happy on top of that? Like, what on earth, you know, is it? What does this mitzvah actually mean? So before we look into what mitzvah actually means, I'm going to throw out a question which you might think is a silly question, but I'm going to ask you to humor me and try and answer it for me. What is happiness?
Mindset.
Okay. Let's try and strip it back to the basics. Not what contributes to happiness, but what is happiness?
Fulfillment.
Okay, so you'll say fulfillment. Anyone else wants to agree, disagree?
Contentment.
Contentment. Okay.
Being satisfied with what's in front of you. So like, I suppose that's echoing what's just been said. being happy with what you've got and not seeking more things just to try and make maybe a false happiness. I don't know. Sorry, I'm loading the dishwasher, so I do apologise.
Happiness is a loaded dishwasher.
Before the husband comes home, it's definitely happiness.
I would say there's different types of happiness. Happiness is contentment, but you can be happy as well as sad, because in that moment you're having a good time, enjoying yourself, and you're happy for that time.
But deep down, you're saying there's a sadness.
Can be. Just because you're sad or depressed or whatever doesn't mean you can't be happy as well. So it depends, because if you're enjoying yourself, having a good time, in that moment you're happy, but then you can go back to being sad. But if you're fulfilled and happy in yourself, then I suppose you're gonna be happy all the time. So it really depends.
All right.
Isn't happiness just a feeling of happy? I know it sounds like really, really obvious, but like I actually think like the words like content and things are actually not necessarily happy. You can be content in life with like what you have, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy. I actually just think happy is a very specific emotion, like a specific feeling.
Right. My question, yeah. I mean, it's a good point, Lisa. My question, what I'm trying to really identify is that what does that emotion kind of feel like? What is it? How do we get that feeling? Imagine, an alien came down to Earth and you're trying to explain to the alien what happiness is, right? They've never kind of experienced it. And it's a feeling and it's an emotion. And it's very interesting what I think Sharon pointed out was that you can be sad and happy is I think what she's saying. And I want to, which reminds me of an incredible story that I heard. So there was a rabbi called the Chazon Ish, and he lived through the Holocaust. And this is what he said. He said the most incredible, crazy thing, and no one else could say that, but he could say it because he lived through the Holocaust. This is what he says. He says, for someone who knows the truth, there is no suffering in this world, right? Now, what on earth does he mean? Like, I can't say that. No one can say that, but he went through the Holocaust, right? He suffered through the Holocaust and he came out of it. And he says, for someone who knows the truth, there is no suffering in this world. What does that mean? What is he teaching us here is that, and I'm going to flip what Sharon said on the other side, right? You can have the most amazing time, right? You can be out, right? Whatever, let's talk about pre-COVID times. You can be out with friends, you have a party, you can be having fun, whatever, and you could still be unhappy. You could still be sad, right? You come home and you feel empty and sad. And what right, it's not just sorry, hold on, it's not just a smile on your face. That's not just happiness, right? And the flip side of it is that you could think about, if you think about a woman in labor, is she happy?
She will be.
She will be, right? Now, imagine if you had never, if there was someone that comes into Earth and walks into a maternity ward, right? And they see a woman in labor, they would think, oh my goodness, this is a tragedy. This is awful. This woman, it must be like horrendously miserable, right? What they don't realize is that the woman in labor is in pain, in a lot of pain, right? She may be in a lot of pain, but deep down, she's happy. Why? Because she, like, if you would offer her the choice, right? Obviously, if you offer her the choice of she would do it all over again. Why? Because the end result is worth the process. Now, so what does this teach us about suffering? About happiness? Is that happiness is happiness is when our soul is doing what it know when our soul knows that it's doing what it should be doing, right? Now I'll give you an analogy to this. Okay, we spoke about the idea of a woman in labor and how you can be in tremendous pain and yet happiness, right? The moment that child is born, she may be uncomfortable, it's one of the happiest moments of her life, definitely until the kid starts talking, right? Talking back, and then they become a teenager, and it's even better. Right? Or imagine something else. Imagine the days when a gym could be open, and there's this alien that lands on Earth, and it walks past, and it sees that this person in the gym, and they're sweating, and there's like tears coming down their face, and they would walk past and they think, oh my goodness, that must be some sort of torture going on. It must be that, some sort of like prisoner of war or something, whatever. What the person doesn't realize is that the person is paying for the privilege of going to the gym, right? Why? What does this all show us? Is that happiness is not necessarily just a smile on your face, having a good time, right? You could be sitting there in a bar with a friend, laughing, and have a deep-seated unhappiness within you, a sadness within you. And I think that's what Sharon was saying. You could laugh and enjoy the moment, and yet it doesn't touch the happiness within us. And the flip side is also true. And I think this is what the Chazon Ish was saying there. He went through the Holocaust. He understood, he experienced that life can be so painful and so difficult. And yet what he was saying is that there is no suffering, because life can be painful, but suffering is a choice, right? And happiness comes when our soul knows that it's doing what it should be doing. So why is it this way? What are the roots of the fact that, if you think about it, that happiness, you could be working hard, and I don't know if anyone here has experienced, think for a minute. I'll give you a time to think of a moment in your life where you've worked really, really hard for something, whether it's a project, whether it's a child, whatever it is, something that's been hard, but then has given you pleasure. Can anyone relate to something like that?
Yeah. Having a child.
I'll also share with you, I'll share with you something personal that's just come into my mind, is that last week, I think it was last week, I can't remember, the days all run into themselves, my fifth child turned 8. And it was a very, very, very special birthday for me. And I'll tell you why, because when I was pregnant with this kid, he's my 5th. So I thought, you know what? I've done it 4 times before. I'm a pro. Nothing can scare me. And then this kid was born, and almost like from day dot, this child taught me one thing, and that was, you know nothing. And some kids are just hard to work, right? And he really like pushed me at, learn, and really, really taught me that I didn't know much. And he's turning 8, and thank God he's really like settling down and turning into, he's like, his sweetness is coming out. He's like his, as we would say, like his good midas, like he's becoming a mensch. And so yes, it's a birthday and it's exciting, and there's cake and there's presents, and it's just a birthday, but there was also a part of me that felt like, wow, there's something coming from this kid that has pushed me and made me dig deep and made me learn so much more when I already thought I knew what I was doing. By the way, if anyone wants to work on your humility, my top tip for you is have kid number 5. That will that you know nothing, right? So that's just something. So think anyone else can sort of relate to that, like something that you worked really hard on wasn't necessarily pleasurable, right? There may be I'm just laughing what Tash is saying, that the kids are going wild upstairs, but we have no idea what she's talking about, right? Never happens, not in this house. So here's my full disclaimers. The reason why my kids are always quiet at 7, hello, at at 8:30 at night is because the early birds come to my house at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's like loud and mayhem. So anyone that feels bad, please don't. Anyway, so where were we talking about? Can anyone relate to the idea of working hard for something that has then gone on to give you pleasure?
I can think of something. When we renovated our house, it was the most stressful thing ever. Really, really hard. But obviously it's brilliant when it's done, and you appreciate it when it's all finished.
Yeah, I think that is a great example. Anyone else can relate, or even if you want to share, or just...
It's not like in such a big context as a house thing, but Mel, I feel your pain with that one, because we also did that. But like Shayna this week, she literally put so much hard work into baking cakes to give to different charities, and it was like really hard. And for her, like, she's 10-11 years of age, to give up 2 days of a half term, like, she wanted to do it, but then when we were there, she was like, Mummy, I didn't realize this was going to be such hard work and take such a long time. But she wouldn't give up, and she did it. But the satisfaction she had when we gave it over to the friendship circle and gift, she was just unbelievable. And then one of the residents from the friendship circle sent her the most beautiful video tonight, and she said to me, Mummy, it was just all so worthwhile, and like, just hard work pays off sometimes. And she really understood that today, and I just feel that was a really good example.
Yep, and there's a few examples in the chat as well. There's leaving your country, starting over, and starting a business, and
I was just gonna say, like, trying to set up, trying to start a business, especially in lockdown, and that's 3 o'clock at night, still in the morning, still awake, trying to think of posts and. It's really tough, but it's so worth it when you make somebody happy, and you do a good job.
Yeah, and what's interesting, what's coming out from here is that we see that it's almost proportional, right? The harder it is, the more pleasure we get from it, right? It almost seems to be that the pleasure we get from something depends on the journey we take to get to it, right? When the journey is hard and fraught with difficulty, right? With sweat, with tears, with blood, the end result is so pleasurable because we poured ourselves into it. And on the flip side, the journey can become pleasurable when we know what we're working towards, right? To use your example of let's say Melissa's example or Haley's example, imagine if you knew that the house that you were building was going to be ripped up, right? It'd be an awful experience. Or the business that you're trying to build up, you knew that it's just gonna evaporate, right? That would be a horrendous experience. The journey becomes the happiness in the journey is because we know that we are working towards something. So why is it this way that our happiness for something is kind of dependent on how hard the journey is? And to give a very, very simple analogy for those of you that work out or whatever, right? If you ever go to a class, a gym, or you work out, and at the end of it, it's not a particular, you don't feel like you worked hard. Do you feel like that was a good class or not?
I suppose it's like if someone bought you a cake, bought you a chocolate brownie, oh great, it's beautiful, it's delightful, you taste it, you enjoy it. If you made that brownie yourself, you appreciate every little moment that it takes to make that brownie, and you kind of enjoy it more, even though it's probably not as nice as the shop bought one. But you just, because you've seen every little step and the sweat and tears.
And if you think about it, really, we should appreciate the one that was given to us because it came like pain-free. But instead, the one that you work towards is you appreciate more. So why is it like this? And there's actually a very deep root to why it is. And I think when we understand that root, it can give us a big insight into how we can maintain our happiness. So I'm not sure how much of it we'll get through tonight, but let's see what we can do. So the reason why it is because life is a journey. Our life here is a journey to the world to come. And every achievement that we do in this world, every mitzvah that we do in this world is an investment, a seed of eternity. So when we do something, when we achieve, when we do a mitzvah, we are achieving a seed of eternity. And the harder it is, the bigger the achievement is, and our soul senses that, right? So when we work hard towards something, when we invest ourselves into something, then we're investing into eternity, and that brings joy, because what is the world to come? This is obviously a bit of a bigger discussion, but in a very short amount of time, the world to come is the true experience of who we have created. We're taught that when a person comes to the next world, they experience themselves as who they are. And that could be pleasurable or painful, depends on the life that a person lives, right? One of the functions of a person's brain is, one of the functions of that a person's brain is that it filters out a lot of things that are going on. Imagine if you're going through your day and you register every single noise, every single thing that you saw registered in your brain, you wouldn't be able to function, right? Part of what our brain does is it filters it out. But what it does as a result is it gives us a very like subjective experience of the world, right? We see something, which is why sometimes you can get in the car and drive somewhere and not realize where you're getting there, is because we have our filters on, right? And what happens in the world to come is that those filters go, and a person doesn't have those filters. So we experience it for what it is. We experience ourselves for what we are, which can be an incredible thing, because if a person's lived a good life and they've built up mitzvahs and eternity, they come into the next world and it's amazing, right? They see the real impact of who they were. On the other hand, our excuses are gone, our rationalizations are gone, and that could be, God forbid, an incredible, a painful experience. But what this shows us is that life is a journey, with the destination is the next world, and the eternity that we ourselves build with the actions that we take in this world. And on a soul level, our soul knows that we are here for please God, a long life, but however long our life is, it's limited. And our soul senses the urgency that we are here and we need to accomplish and we need to do and we need to create that eternity by grabbing onto the opportunities to do the mitzvahs that God put us into this world to do. And when our soul knows that we're moving towards that eternity, our soul is happy. Right? And that happiness can be, it could be painful, right? It's like the Chazon Ish said, right? There could be suffering, there could be pain, but the soul isn't suffering because they know that it's going to where it's going to. So what is the key to happiness? So I think there's two parts to it. There's number one is that the doing, right? Sometimes when I had an experience like this past weekend on Shabbos. I woke up from a nap on Friday, on Shabbos afternoon. If I shared it with anyone, apologies. But and I was really grumpy, really, really grumpy. And the kids were like around, and my like angelic kids were just like playing so nicely with raised voices and like fists at each other. And I was just like, I'm feeling it. Really just not feeling it, and I had this moment of like, you know what, just do it, right? Just do something to switch up the environment. And what I did is I pulled out some toys, I got down with the kids and I played, and it just made such a difference. And what it kind of showed to me was that we have to do regardless of how we feel. And it's interesting is that Judaism teaches us this again and again, right? Because Judaism is filled with mitzvahs. all actions that we have to do, and we have to do them regardless of how we feel, right? Like, for example, the mitzvah of charity. We don't give charity just when we're feeling charitable. We have to give it, and eventually, we will become more charitable. Same thing with kosher, with Shabbat, with any other mitzvah that we have in the Torah. It's not based on our emotions. It's based on the actions. Why? Because Judaism teaches us something that is so, so profound. It teaches us that our actions influence our emotions, right? If you ever feel like, I'm just not in the mood of doing something, and yet you go and do it, it can change your mood more than if you wait for your mood to change to do it. You ever feel, let's say, for example, like I'm just not in the mood to going for a walk, right? And yet you go out and you push yourself, you go out for a walk, it will change your mood, right? Because the actions influence us. The same thing, if you feel like, I don't know, I'm not in the mood of giving to someone else, or I'm not in the mood of doing something else, and you do it anyway, it has an effect on our mood. So the first thing that we have to know is that the key to happiness is by doing the right things. And by doing the right things, I mean by feeding our soul, because we can do things that there's in life, in general, there's always a real way to achieve something and a false way to achieve something, right? And a person can achieve happiness, real happiness, by living a good life. But there's also there are other ways to achieve happiness, right? For example, a person can achieve happiness. They can to take it to one extreme. They can take a drug, right? And it'll give them a quick fix. The problem is it doesn't last, right? For happiness to be deep-seated and lasting, it has to be a soul happiness, that our soul knows that we're here on earth for a purpose, and that is to build our eternity. And when the soul knows that we are doing that, that is when the soul feels the happiness. So the first one is to do it, and the second one is also knowing it, right? Because as we said, I think we touched upon this earlier, is that, imagine if you thought that the project you're working on, right, to go on to the examples that a few of you have given of like working hard for a project, right? Imagine if you thought that the project that you're working on was going to disappear in a whiff of smoke as soon as you finished working on it. You wouldn't tolerate it, right? The fact that, as I think Haley said, and Melissa said, and I think Marcia and Danielle said, is that part of what makes a difficult journey tolerable is knowing that it is worth it, right? So when we understand that there is no greater project in this world than building ourselves, right? Which we're gonna take with us into eternity, then that is the part B that gives us that happiness, right? So that the doing, because our soul recognizes that we're here for a purpose and our soul wants to achieve that purpose. And the second thing is by recognizing how valuable that project is of building our soul, building our soul.
Thank you so much for spending your time and listening to this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. And if you could help us out by leaving a rating or a review for the podcast, that would be amazing. Thank you and have a great day.